Good day, this is Maria Zicania, and I'm giving a lecture interpreting graphs and tables. This is very important, especially when you're writing your thesis or dissertation. This is also the first part in the IELTS academic writing test. So today, my main objective is to discuss ways of analyzing and interpreting data. Let's have this preliminary exercise. How will you analyze and interpret the data presented below? What are your major considerations? You have to look at the title of the graph, the y axis, which represents the number of elk, the x axis, which represents the years covered. Consider also the legend here. The different colors represent the specific type of the elk population. So, what is the first thing that you need to present in your graph? Of course, every essay requires an introduction. The introduction here should, when you introduce your interpretation of data, you need to consider the general statement. The general statement presents what the graph is about, looking at the title, right? And the overview statement, which is the this statement, is actually the general picture or the trends, no, that you see in the graph. So let's take a look at the sample from Golden 2022. The line graph shows changes in the estimated population of three different types of elk in California between 1965 and 2017. This is the overview statement. Overall, the population of all three species increased over the 52-year period. So if you notice, the general or the overview statement represents the main idea of the graph. So considering the three species of elk and their population, their population increased over the 52-year period. Next, you have also to look at the way your body paragraphs can be developed. So looking at this outline, you have to consider the trends and patterns. What else? You have to compare and contrast. So which of the elk population, which of the type of elks represents the highest population in 2017, which has the lowest population? And what are the common values that you can see there? You also look at the decline in the population of the Roosevelt elk by looking at the line graph here. So there, consider also the number of the number of elk or the population. Consider the years here. So in interpreting data. And the last paragraph is the conclusion. You have to restate your thesis statement or the main idea. So let's have a sample here. I have already read the introduction, so I'm going to read the body paragraph. So it's noteworthy to mention that Tool Elk started with the lowest population of about 500. Look at this one, right? But it grew dramatically from 1982 to 1988 with a slight decline in 1990. From then on, it showed its steady increase in its population over a period of 16 years from 1991 to 2017. Its estimated population by 2017 reached more than 5,000. On the other hand, Rocky Mountain Elk's population shows a steady increase for a period of 15 years from 1970 to 1985. However, it remains stable from 1986 to 2017, with approximately 1,500 species. Unlike Rocky Mountain elk with steady little growth, Roosevelt elk's population declined by about 25% in 1970, but it was able to pick up the following year and continue to grow in the succeeding years. In 2017, both Roosevelt elk and Gold elk had the same population of almost 6,000. So there, that's the body paragraph. So to give you another way of interpreting data from Victoria State government 2019, mentioned that when you write your introduction, it's just you have to describe what the graph shows. So usually this graph shows, figure one shows like that, and identify the list any general patterns or trends. So that's the overview statement or thesis statement, which is the same with what I discussed earlier. And for the body paragraphs, you consider the trend, okay, or trends. Trend one, maybe you can mention about the trend in terms of the population of Roosevelt elk. So describe the first pattern or trend in 20 words and provide evidence from the graph. Additional trends or trend two, you have to repeat the same procedure in trend one. And for other, other things that you can cover in your interpretation of data, you may consider anomalies or differences, provide evidence from the graph. So if there is, let's say, a significant decrease, so you have to mention that. And the last paragraph is conclusion or recommendation, wherein you can just just repeat or restate your thesis statement. You replace the main trend that you have indicated in your first paragraph. All right, so let's have the second second exercise. So I have here the table, and you have the title, have the percentages. No? The general statement here is the table illustrates the percentage of household income that 5 countries in Europe spend per month on 4 items. So that is the general statement. It shows what the table presents. And the overview statement or thesis statement is the general trend looking at the table. So it says here, overall, it is clear that all 5 countries spend the majority of their income on food and drink and housing, but much less on clothing and entertainment. So that's a thesis statement. And for the body paragraphs, you have to consider trend one, trend two. So consider the trend in of French people, or rather in France. So French spend their income most on housing, right? And of course, it's followed by food and drink. But so you can see that France, Germany, UK, so France, Germany, and UK spend most of their income on housing. Food and drink is just secondary. So notice that. So that's the first trend. You can go on looking at the other data, looking at the other trends, I mean. So that's for the body paragraphs, and you conclude with the restatement of the thesis. All right. So let's me talk about some of the vocabulary or words that you can use in interpreting graphs. If there is an increase in terms of percentages or population, so you can use increase, racket, climb, lift, grow, etc. To go down, you have all this vocabulary like decline, decrease, plummet, slump, etc. No change in terms of percentages or population. You can just say remains. It remains stable or steady. It stabilizes, or that it's hold it. So you have you have hold constant. If there is a change of direction, so there's a sudden decrease, so you have there left off or level out, level off, stop falling or rising, stop rising and start falling, and all these vocabulary words. If there is a frequent change, so you can use fluctuate, or there's a fluctuation. And if there is a big increase, so you have at the top, it reach a peak, right? It reaches its highest point, and at the bottom you can say it hits a low point, like that. And for let's say if there's a change, no, in terms of degree or speed. In terms of degree, you can use it dramatically decreased or it significantly increased by 50%, like that. And in terms of speed, rapid or rapidly, gentle, little by little or slowly. So there. You can also use some prepositions like arise from the population, let's say arise from, let's say, arise from 10 to 20 or from 5,000 to 7,000, like that. And then you have to increase by 5%. The population increased by 25% from 1970 to 1975. So you can do that. And an increase of 5%. So an increase of 25%. All those prepositions you can use. No? What I have introduced are some of the vocabulary words that you can use. So this is taken from an online website. Okay, so these are the references that I used for this presentation. So I hope you learned something for today. All right, so let me just summarize by looking at the structure of the, yeah, you have to consider this structure when writing your interpretation of data. You can start with the introduction, from general statement to overview statement, so thesis statement. And for the body paragraphs, you consider the trends and patterns, you compare and contrast the data there. And for the conclusion, you can just restate the thesis statement. All right. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned something today.